Hello. Welcome to the review of the 2026 NCAA Convention Division II proposals. This presentation will provide you with an introduction and overview of the 17 proposals set to be voted on by the Division II membership at the convention. 6 of the proposals are governance-sponsored proposals, and 11 are membership-sponsored proposals. Let's start by talking about the educational resources for the proposals and the Division II official notice associated with convention. As a reminder, all educational resources and the Division II official notice will only be posted to the Legislative Actions and Issues page on the NCAA website and will not be made available in hard copy. For the 2026 NCAA convention, a legislative grid will be released along with this convention voiceover video to the membership by September 23rd. The legislative grid will contain all membership-sponsored proposals that were properly sponsored by the July 15th deadline, along with the NCAA Division II governance-sponsored proposals that were properly sponsored by September 1st. The next publication is the official notice, which will be released to the membership by December 10th, and is essentially a guide to the Division II business session at convention. The white pages contain the membership-sponsored proposals and the governance-sponsored proposals in the order in which they will be voted on at the business session. Next, the blue pages contain all of the legislative actions taken by the NCAA Division II Management Council since the membership last met at the 2025 NCAA convention. This includes all emergency and non-controversial proposals and interpretations incorporated into the Division II manual. Lastly, the question and answer guide will be released to the membership via the NCAA website, but will not be released in hard copy. This document contains commonly asked questions regarding the convention proposals. The question and answer guide, along with the Division II official notice, will be released by December 10th. Now that we have done an overview of the educational resources associated with the convention and the Division II official notice, let's dive right into the 17 proposals for the 2026 convention. Let's start with the 6 governance-sponsored proposals. The first governance-sponsored proposal will add women's flag football as an emerging sport for women and establish legislation related to membership, financial aid, and playing and practice seasons as specified. This proposal has an immediate effective date. The continued growth in high school women's flag football, along with the number of colleges sponsoring the sport, demonstrates the rapid growth of women's flag football and its potential to reach NCAA championship status. The Committee on Women's Athletics determined that enough women's flag football teams met the guidelines of the Emerging Sports for Women program application, demonstrating significant interest and sustainability within college athletics. It was also noted that the sport is relatively inexpensive to sponsor and attracts additional demographics of potential student athletes. There is a shared commitment at the collegiate level to increase participation opportunities from institutions and conferences, in addition to funding and resources from national governing bodies to further support the growth of women's flag football. Finally, the immediate effective date will allow schools that sponsor the sport in the 2026 spring championship season to count towards the 40 institution requirement to establish a national collegiate championship in a women's sport. The second governance-sponsored proposal will establish a national collegiate championship in acrobatics and tumbling. The proposal will also establish an acrobatics and tumbling committee. This proposal has an immediate effective date. Acrobatics and tumbling has been an emerging sport in all 3 divisions since 2020. In spring of 2025, based on unofficial data, 44 NCAA member institutions met minimum sport sponsorship requirements. This puts the sport above the legislatively required threshold of 40 varsity programs needed for a women's sport to be considered for national collegiate championship status. It is anticipated that the announcement of sponsoring an acrobatics and tumbling national collegiate championship would continue to drive membership interest in the sport. The Committee on Women's Athletics agreed that acrobatics and tumbling should be added as an NCAA championship after consulting with various committees in the NCAA governance structure and examining projected costs. Acrobatics and tumbling has continued to grow in the collegiate space and has received continued interest in the Youth K to 12 level from related sports. The sport has a diverse recruiting pool of student athletes competing in gymnastics, cheerleading, diving, dance, and weightlifting, among other sports. This has created more participation opportunities for women, with over 1,100 student athletes competing in 2023 to 2024 across all divisions. Finally, the immediate effective date will permit the newly established Acrobatics and Tumbling Committee to begin its work in January to prepare for the first NCAA National Championship in spring 2027. The third governance-sponsored proposal will establish stunt as a national collegiate championship. The proposal will also establish a stunt committee. This proposal has an immediate effective date. Stunt has been an emerging sport in Divisions 1 and 2 since August 2023 and Division 3 since August 2024. In spring of 2025, based on unofficial data, 41 NCAA member institutions met minimum sport sponsorship requirements, putting the sport above the legislatively required threshold of 40 varsity programs to be considered for national collegiate championship status. It is anticipated that the announcement of sponsoring a national collegiate championship in stunt would continue to drive membership interest in the sport. The Committee on Women's Athletics agreed that stunt should be added as an NCAA championship after consulting with various committees in the NCAA governance structure and examining projected costs. Stunt has grown rapidly both in the collegiate space and in the youth/K-12 level, with increased stunt competition opportunities. Stunt has also created more participation opportunities for women within the NCAA. In 2023 to 24, although stunt was not yet an emerging sport in Division 3, a total of 704 student athletes competed in stunt in Divisions 1 and 2. The immediate effective date will permit the stunt committee to begin its work in January 2026 to prepare for the first NCAA national championship in spring 2027. The fourth governance-sponsored proposal will establish a Division II women's bowling championship. This proposal will also establish an NCAA Division II women's bowling committee. If adopted, this proposal will be effective immediately. However, the first Division II women's bowling championship would not occur until April 2028. Membership survey results indicated a strong support for establishing a Division II specific bowling championship from the existing National Collegiate Championship. The survey results indicated that among those institutions that sponsor women's bowling, there is a strong preference for competing in and winning a Division II championship as opposed to a National Collegiate Championship. As of the 2023 to 24 academic year, 38 Division II institutions sponsored women's bowling, which triggered a review of whether to establish a Division II women's bowling championship. The immediate effective date will permit the Women's Bowling Committee to begin its work in January 2026 to prepare for the first Division II championship in April 2028. Until the first Division II championship, Division II women's bowling programs will continue to participate in the National Collegiate Bowling Championship. The fifth governance-sponsored proposal will amend the seasons of competition legislation. The proposal will permit a student athlete to engage in 5 seasons of intercollegiate competition in any one sport during their first 10 semesters or 15 quarters of full-time enrollment. The proposal will also eliminate the currently legislated exceptions and waivers associated with the seasons of competition legislation. Finally, the proposal will amend the exceptions and waivers for the period of eligibility, as specified. If adopted, this proposal will be effective August 1st, 2026, for student athletes that have not exhausted their eligibility before or at the conclusion of the 2024 to 25 academic year. The effective date would give student athletes who have not exhausted their eligibility, that is, has seasons of competition remaining and semesters or quarters remaining, before or at the conclusion of the 2024 to 25 academic year, an additional season of competition. As a note, if this proposal is not adopted, the legislation will not change, which means student athletes may participate in no more than 4 seasons of competition in any one sport during their first 10 semesters or 15 quarters of full-time enrollment. The Eligibility Review Working Group was formed to perform a comprehensive review of eligibility rules. The working group focused on issues surrounding seasons of competition and period of eligibility and developed guidelines for its review, including using data to make recommendations, developing recommendations consistent with the life in the balance philosophy, and limiting exceptions and waivers as much as possible. The working group reviewed 2022 to 23 Division II academic performance census data as well as data from pre-pandemic years regarding time to degree for Division II student athletes, and determined the data supported a recommendation for an additional season of competition. Additionally, initial membership feedback also indicated that three-quarters of respondents believed the 10-semester, 15-quarter legislation is still appropriate. The working group agreed that the current 10-semester, 15-quarter rule allows flexibility for student athletes who necessitate a break in college attendance that a 5-year consecutive clock following initial full-time collegiate enrollment would not provide. Exceptions and waivers to the period of eligibility rule would be available in limited and well-defined instances. Finally, based on the initial survey, the working group agreed that current legislation regarding transfers from non-Division II institutions and Division III transfer student athletes that only practice but do not compete would continue to apply. The sixth and final governance-sponsored proposal specifies that Division II team sports shall use the NCAA Power Index, or NPI, for championship selections beginning with the 2026 to 27 academic year. If adopted, this proposal will be effective August 1st, 2026. The NCAA Power Index, or NPI, is a system of statistical data that objectively applies the selection criteria to the data based on a sport committee's established weighted criteria, and has been used in the NCAA Ice Hockey Championships for several years and was adopted by Division III last year for all team sport committees to use. The metric can be adjusted by what are referred to as dials, or specific components of the metric that each sport committee has the authority to set, thus placing any desired subjectivity within the criteria themselves that are then applied objectively. The Division II Championships Committee discussed the merits of the NPI at length over the past year and gathered feedback from sport committees and other membership stakeholders, indicating strong support for using the metric as the sole selection criterion for team sports. Because the NPI eliminates the need for the sport committees to conduct rankings throughout the season, regional advisory committees would be eliminated if this proposal is adopted, beginning with the 2026 to 27 academic year. Now that we have reviewed the 6 governance-sponsored proposals, let's review the 11 membership-sponsored proposals. The first membership-sponsored proposal establishes the following dates as recruiting dead periods in football. 1. December 22nd to January 1st. 2. Monday through Wednesday during the week of the annual American Football Coaches Association convention. And 3. Saturday before Memorial Day through Memorial Day. This will be a football-only vote during the Division II business session. If adopted, this proposal will be effective August 1st, 2026. Currently, the only recruiting dead periods in football are tied to the sport's signing dates. The rest of the annual football recruiting calendar is now a contact period. This creates an unsustainable, always-on recruiting mentality and environment for coaches and programs, which directly contradicts the life in the balance philosophy in Division II. Adding 3 new football recruiting dead periods in late December, January, and around Memorial Day will provide much-needed breaks in the recruiting calendar during the year. This will permit coaches and staff to spend more time with loved ones without having to worry about potential recruiting concerns and disadvantages. Finally, this proposal will also permit attendance at the annual American Football Coaches Association convention without expectations of recruiting responsibilities. The second membership-sponsored proposal will permit an institution to provide retroactive athletics aid during an academic year. If adopted, this proposal will be effective August 1st, 2026. As a note, during their July meeting, the Division II Management Council referred this proposal to the NCAA Division II Legislation Committee to discuss whether this amendment can be made via non-controversial legislation. The Legislation Committee will have this discussion during their September meeting. If non-controversial legislation is adopted, the sponsors will withdraw this proposal, and it will not be voted on during the Division II business session. Currently, an institution must prorate a student-athlete's athletics aid if it is awarded after the period of the award begins. The legislation is misunderstood, and the prorating calculations are tedious and time-consuming for both compliance and the Financial Aid Office. Additionally, under current legislation, institutions are already permitted to increase athletics aid at any time for any reason. Further, institutions are permitted to retroactively award students other than student athletes with scholarships, loans, and grants to the beginning of the academic year. This proposal will not increase the amount of aid an institution may provide to an individual student athlete, nor does it increase the amount an institution may provide to a team. This proposal will also provide greater flexibility for coaches and administrators in awarding athletics aid, reducing the burden on compliance and the financial aid office. Finally, if adopted, this would be permissive legislation. Therefore, institutions would not be required to provide retroactive athletics aid. The third membership sponsored proposal is specific to baseball. The proposal will increase the weekly hour limitation during the non championship segment from 15 hours per week to 18 hours per week. Additionally, the proposal will permit an intra squad scrimmage during the non championship segment to exceed the 4 hours per day limitation, provided the student athlete does not exceed the 18 hours per week. If adopted, this proposal will be effective August 1st, 2026. Currently, during the non championship segment, a student athlete's participation in countable athletically related activities is limited to a maximum of 4 hours per day and 15 hours per week. All sports place specific, yet vastly different demands upon student athletes and coaches. Recently, governing bodies have acknowledged these differences by approving sport specific amendments to the legislation that have helped establish the flexibility required to focus on student athlete safety, growth, and development. The current model in baseball has unintentionally pushed student athletes toward outside training organizations and internet based training routines for continued development. These programs are not fully monitored, less controlled, and often dangerous. Increasing the weekly hour limitation from 15 to 18 hours would provide coaches with the ability to balance their student athletes' on field development with proper supervision and protocols. Given the large squad sizes in baseball, this extra time would allow coaches to give more attention and opportunities to all members of the team, which would in turn enhance the student athlete experience and retention. The fourth membership sponsored proposal is also specific to baseball. This proposal will increase the institutional and student athlete playing season maximum limitation to 52 contests, which includes games and scrimmages. If adopted, this proposal will be effective August 1st, 2026. Currently, in baseball, an institution and student athlete must limit its playing season with outside competition to 50 contests. In March of 2023, the NCAA Division I Committee for Legislative Relief approved a blanket waiver for Division I baseball programs to increase their squad size from 35 to 40 players, while also raising the 27 scholarship counter cap to 32 players. These developments point to a drastic shift in college baseball, and as the recruiting challenges in Division II increase, they mark a need for increased team-related opportunities for student athletes. Student athletes often attend colleges for the opportunity to play their sport. Raising the maximum number of baseball contests from 50 to 52 will create more opportunities for them to do so. Additionally, a significant percentage of coaches mentioned that a schedule of 52 contests allows teams to even up their schedules without having to seek an awkward series to get to 50 total contests. Finally, softball currently allows a maximum of 56 contests during its playing season. The fifth membership sponsored proposal is specific to basketball. This proposal specifies that a member institution shall not play its first basketball contest game or scrimmage with outside competition before the Monday that is 17 weeks before the Division II men's and women's championship selection dates. If adopted, this proposal will be effective August 1st, 2026. Under current legislation, an institution shall not play its first basketball contest with outside competition before the second Friday of November, with a few exceptions. However, the second Friday in November can sometimes fall as late as November 14th. This results in fewer days and weeks to schedule and complete regular season contests and non-conference contests. The compressed schedule also makes it difficult, if not impossible, to schedule region challenge events. Amending the current legislation will standardize the length of the regular season, provide additional days earlier in the season to schedule non-conference contests, allow for participation in region challenge events without scheduling burdens, and alleviate, if not eliminate, the type of scheduling compression that occurs under current legislation. The sixth membership-sponsored proposal is also specific to basketball. This proposal will permit contests against an out of region opponent from a contiguous state to be exempted as part of a region challenge event. If adopted, this proposal will be effective August 1st, 2026. As a note, during their July meeting, the Division II Management Council referred this proposal to the Legislation Committee to discuss whether this amendment can be made via non controversial legislation. The Legislation Committee will have this discussion during their September meeting. If non controversial legislation is adopted, the sponsors will withdraw this proposal, and it will not be voted on during the Division II business session. Currently, an institution may not exempt any contests played in a region challenge event if an out of region institution participates in the event. However, regional advisory committees count contests against out of region opponents from contiguous states as in region contests when completing rankings. Therefore, these contests should be allowed to be exempted from region challenge events. Often, one or more conferences in a region shut out the third conference from participating in a region challenge event. Allowing the participation of out of region opponents from contiguous states in a region challenge event would provide more equitable opportunities for teams from all conferences in the region. The seventh membership sponsored proposal is specific to golf. This proposal will increase the institutional and student athlete playing season maximum limitation in golf to 24 dates of competition. The proposal will also specify that an institution may participate in no more than 10 regular season events. If adopted, this proposal will be effective August 1st, 2026. Currently in golf, an institution and student athlete must limit its playing season with outside competition to 21 dates of competition. With the increasing number of 3-day events, this change allows institutions to play in 2 to 3 3-day events without losing a tournament. Currently, if an institution plays 2 3-day events, they lose a tournament. This change will also help from a budget standpoint by reducing the number of entry fees needed, resulting in potential cost savings anywhere from $2,500 to $5,000. Additionally, decreasing the number of 36 whole days will provide more time for rest and academics. Finally, this proposal may also decrease missed class time because 3-day events are typically held Saturday to Tuesday. If an institution participated in 2 3-day events, they would miss 4 class days, 2 Mondays and Tuesdays, whereas 3 2-day events would result in 6 missed class days, 3 Mondays and Tuesdays. The eighth membership-sponsored proposal is specific to soccer. This proposal specifies that soccer preseason practice shall begin with a 4-day acclimatization period for both first-time participants and continuing student athletes. Additionally, the proposal specifies that an institution shall not commence soccer practice before 21 days before the first permissible contest or 9 days before the institution's first day of classes, whichever is earlier. If adopted, this proposal will be effective August 1st, 2026. The NCAA Sports Science Institute data has shown the need for additional days of preseason acclimatization before regular season play commences to reduce injury rates and to improve student-athlete health and wellness. Phasing in countable athletically related activities during the 4-day acclimatization period, combined with strong recommendations for electrocardiogram EKG screening, concussion baseline testing, mental health screening, and functional movement screening all work to improve the soccer student-athlete experience throughout the fall championship segment. The ninth membership-sponsored proposal is specific to softball. This proposal will permit softball institutions and student athletes to participate in 56 contests, games, and scrimmages during the segment that concludes with the NCAA championship, and 4 dates of competition, games, and scrimmages during another segment. If adopted, this proposal will be effective August 1st, 2026. Currently in softball, an institution and student athlete must limit its playing season with outside competition to 56 contests. This legislation has been extremely limiting for softball because there are no legislated non-championship segment opportunities. Therefore, softball programs are required to utilize annual and/or discretionary exemptions. Even if a program utilizes their 3 discretionary exemptions, that equates to 5% of softball's regular season contests, which pales in comparison to other sport ratios. This inequity puts softball student athletes at a disadvantage because it provides them with fewer opportunities to perform and be evaluated by coaches in games that do not count towards championship selection. The 10th membership sponsored proposal will permit the continuation of the Division II field hockey and Division II women's rowing championships if the sport falls below the 35 minimum threshold required to maintain a Division II championship. If adopted, this proposal will be effective August 1st, 2026. During the 2024 NCAA convention, Division II amended the minimum number of sponsoring institutions required to establish and maintain a Division II championship. With the amendment, the long-standing exception for Olympic sports was removed. Further, Division I has eliminated any future opportunity for these programs to participate in Division I championships. Both field hockey and women's rowing are currently included in the Division II championships budget. Therefore, there would be no additional financial increases if this proposal is adopted. Additionally, rowing is conducted jointly with Divisions 1 and 3, which further contributes to cost containment. While field hockey and women's rowing have encountered net declining sponsorship recently, these women's sports do support critical enrollment and participation goals at sponsoring Division II institutions. Also, with mounting financial pressures across the higher education landscape, a decline in enrollment, and barriers to international student enrollment, Division II must preserve these opportunities and thus reduce additional pressures that would be brought by removing championship access in these sports. Finally, the absence of guaranteed access will make it difficult, if not impossible, to grow beyond current sponsorship numbers. The 11th and final membership-sponsored proposal will permit a member conference to count institutions in the final year of the membership process towards the minimum of 6 institutions needed to satisfy the sponsorship requirement for automatic qualification. If adopted, this proposal will be effective August 1st, 2026. Currently, a conference may not use institutions in the membership process to satisfy the requirement that it have 6 active members to earn automatic qualification, AQ, in a sport. By the time an institution reaches the final year of the membership process, they would have been conducting their athletics programs in accordance with all Division II rules and regulations, since institutions in the 3-year provisional membership process are required to follow all Division II legislation beginning year 2, and institutions in the expedited membership process are required to follow all Division II legislation beginning year 1. With the number of institutions dropping sports and/or changing conferences, conferences can lose the opportunity for automatic qualification if they cannot replace a team within the 3-year grace period. Allowing institutions in the final year of the membership process to count toward the required minimum of 6 will allow conferences to maintain automatic qualification while working towards adding additional teams. This proposal will not provide institutions in the final year of the membership process with access to win an AQ or to participate in an NCAA championship. However, the proposal will benefit the well-being of the remaining teams in the conference, allowing them to retain current student athletes who want to be guaranteed an opportunity to play for an AQ. That concludes the overview of the 17 Division II proposals that are slated for a vote during the 2026 convention in January. Please be on the lookout for the 2026 NCAA Convention Legislative Proposals Question and Answer Guide, which will be released by December 10th of this year to assist with any questions you may have. See you in Washington, D.C.